Hi.
Did you get your mother's permission to come here?
She twisted my arm a little bit.
He's a big one.
I want to introduce what this is, who I am, what I'm doing. We're having a discussion about cults. Now, I don't know how many of you have any experience with cults, but that's not the issue. My name is Dennis Erlich, and I was in a cult for a long, long, long time. And what I'm trying to do today is give you some basic information so that you can, one, identify what a cult is when you come in contact with it or when you hear about it, and two, avoid it if you can, if you can get away from it. So those are the two things that I would like to do. And we're videotaping today because perhaps this lecture, this discussion will be part of something that I edit down and give to the school system so that high school kids or junior high school kids can avoid the kind of pitfalls that cults provide for people who are vulnerable. So, the first thing I would like to know from you folks is, have any of you ever been in a cult, do you think? Have any of you had any experience with a cult?
Do you call the Catholic Church a cult?
Well, no, that's a very good point to bring up straight away.
I think it is.
First of all, there must have been something about the Catholic Church that makes you think it might be a cult, right? And those characteristics are what interest me. So what about the Catholic Church makes you think it might be a cult?
You can't eat meat on Friday.
That's not true anymore.
Well, okay, so they tell you what you can eat and what you can't eat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
right, so that's...
toes there.
I'm sorry?
I'm Catholic. You're stepping on my toes.
Well, I'm just saying that I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes.
I don't mean to step on your toes.
I'm not... that isn't what it's about, sir. She says that reminds her of a cult. Right. That reminds her of a cult because it does this. Well, real cults tell you not only what to eat and what to wear and who to talk to and what to read. They tell you a lot of things. Okay? Now, before we get into is this a cult or is that a cult, I want to give my definition for this talk about what a cult is to me and what I'm describing. Now, we all are part of groups. Like this is a group. We're part of the Stroke Center, right? We're part of our community. We're part of our friends. We play bridge. We bowl. We do all of these things with groups. And most of the groups that we're in are healthy groups. They give us enjoyment. They give us leisure. They don't take much from us. They give us more than they take. Well, a cult is a dangerous group that takes more than it gives. And it's a particular kind of dangerous group because it's based on your vulnerabilities, what you're vulnerable to. Like if you're in pain, if you're in emotional pain, if you're lonely, I'm breathing in a lot. But all of these things constitute the factors that make up a cult. The cult has a lot of the same characteristics that normal groups have, only they overdo it. They want more of your loyalty. They want more of your time. They want more of your money. So those are the kinds of groups that I'm talking about. The Catholic Church doesn't fit that to me. There are churches that tend that way. There are individual congregations that demand that people act a certain way and think a certain way. But I want to talk about the extreme end the end of the spectrum where people are actually preyed upon. They're scammed. All right? Now, the cults that I'm talking about are really just scams. And a scam is where you're told one thing, you're asked for something, you give it, and then you find out it's not that at all. See? You're giving money, you're giving your time for a cause that is fraudulent. Right? So that's the kind of group that I'm talking about when I talk about cults. So again, I'm going to ask you, have any of you been in a cult?
I've got a question, Dennis. Who gets the money?
Well, this is part of the way a cult is set up. Everything moves upward in a cult. Everything moves upward except the control. The control moves down, like in the army.
Kind of like a pyramid club or something.
Like a pyramid scheme, exactly. It's a pyramid scheme. In a lot of cases, it involves you giving over your soul so that somebody else has more spiritual power, in that sense. So it can be a financial pyramid scheme, but it has a hierarchy. And there's a leader, and he's got special powers, right? He's got the special insight. He's got the direct line to God. He's got the thing that you want so badly that you're willing to turn yourself over to this group to get it. And this is how cults recruit. They find people who are vulnerable or at vulnerable times in their lives. And they say, okay, tell us your problem. Oh, it's this, my wife, my job, whatever it is. I'm depressed, I'm unhealthy. And they say, that's exactly what we can do for you. You just come this way. You just walk this way. And from that point on, you've sort of turned yourself over to these people. You're on their path. You understand? And when you do that, you've turned over your control over your destiny to a certain degree to those people. Well, you do that when you go in the army. You do that when you're arrested. You do that when you go to work. You turn over control. You did it now. You came in here and you turned over control to the stroke center, and you trust that the stroke center is going to take care of you, look after your needs, and give you what they say they are. Well, in the case of, yeah, I'm going on and on now.
Yes.
I'm going on and on. Go ahead.
Okay.
I know you have trouble expressing yourself, but it's usually a group gives you what they say they're going to give you.
Yes.
And if you don't get it, you can complain about it, and they listen to you.
Right.
Well, a cult isn't going to listen to you. A cult is going to tell you no. The reason you didn't get what we said you were going to get is because you were a bad whatever. You were a bad person. You did bad things. You committed sins. You did all these things, but it's your fault you didn't get heavenly glory or rich or healthy or whatever it is they had promised. Yes, thank you.
I turned down, and I'm supposed to get cooler in here.
So, once again, I'm going to ask you for your experiences with cults, if you have had any, or if you have any questions. I have a whole list of things I can just rattle down, and you can sit here and go, But I prefer to hear from you.
Dennis, do you think that when you get into something, a group or a bunch of people, and as you go on, you pick up things and you learn things and you discard some things and you adopt some.
Right.
Do you think that in a cult that you're not aware of being you know,
Manipulated?
yeah.
Well, in a way, you're asking to be manipulated in a cult. You walk into a cult and they tell you, this is the way you should go. They have a path for you. They say, okay, this is where you need to go. And you buy into it. You trust them. You give them your trust. You say, okay, I'll go this way with you. Right? And little by little, they extract more commitment from you. Right? And little by little, they give you reasons why there's only one direction a person can possibly go, and that is in the direction that they say. If you try and move in the other direction, you're a dissenter. If you say, no, that's BS, if you question in any way, a cult will make it your problem. Even if the group is doing something you know is wrong, they'll say, it's your problem because you don't see it's for a higher purpose that we're doing this. And you don't visualize this higher purpose. So, a cult will always turn your complaint around on you. See? So, yes.
I think there is a lot of those people on television.
Which people in specific?
Yes.
A lot of people who are scam artists? Or
Yes, they're on television and they are giving speeches to the people which way to go, what to do, what to think, what not to think.
Right.
And they take off all their clothes and tell people.
No, I don't need that.
Well, you're talking about people who are televangelists. You're talking about.
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to argue the point with you. Certainly, I see a lot of cultism in some of the more extreme religious practices that I see on television. But then I have a very kind of unique perspective on groups, having been in a cult and dedicated my life to one. Yeah.
What do you do when the person in the cult realize that what they're doing is not right and quit?
That's cult recovery. That's recovery from a cult, and that is a very, very difficult thing for people who have been deep into cults, is to re-enter society. If they were ever a part of society before, they sort of have to learn it all over again. And it can be very time-consuming and very painful. And they've cut their ties to their family, to their friends. They've turned their back on their religion a lot of times. And when they realize, oh my God, what have I been doing? I've been giving all of my energy to something that is bad. It's harmful to people. So it's a soul-shaking experience to go through, yeah. Because cult members are usually so certain of everything. That's one thing that sort of, they're absolutely certain that this is this and this is this, and if you say that, that means you're this. Their certainty is shaken to such a degree.
Do you think
That's brainwashing, right?
Right.
that,
Well, that's what it used to be called, yeah. We
do
don't
you
know.
think, Dennis, that people like the educators, the teachers, etc., know about this happening? Are they aware of it?
Well, I think that there's something in what you said about the TV evangelists, and there's something about educators. They know they're playing with people's heads.
Uh-huh.
And they're afraid of being accused maybe of doing the same thing that the cults are, right? So it's not something that people in the press really talk about all that much, what constitutes manipulation of people. Mm-hmm. What is manipulative and what is honest, what is straightforward. So, yes. Whatever your question was, the answer is
I got it.
But anybody else, more questions? Because I'll,
Hey,
yeah.
Matt? Yes, great.
Uh,
No, no, yes, yes,
Oh, yeah, only one answer.
yes,
Only one
yes.
answer. Only one answer to anything. And that is the cult's point of view, right? Getting to sort of the end of my talk, going from the beginning to the end, and it's not time yet, so you're going to have to suffer a little bit more. Dissent. Okay, what groups encourage dissent within their ranks? What groups don't? What groups punish people who dissent? If you say, no, I think that you're doing the wrong thing here, is the group willing to accept or at least discuss what you have to say? If they're not, if they just sort of ban you or shun you, everybody goes, oh, you stupid, how could you think that? If that's the case in a group, well, that group has cult tendencies, right? It doesn't permit people to disagree with it. The doctrine of the cult, the dogma of the cult, is fixed and allows no discussion. The Catholic Church allows you to leave, right? In a cult, you can't really leave. There's no leaving a cult. You are thrust back into hell. You are put, your family is gone, your friends are gone. You're just sort of cast out on the street. Usually no identification, that's the way they discard people, cults do. So I was talking about it as a form of a scam, a confidence game, a con. You are conned. And in any con, the person is given a hook. He's hooked in some way. And normally, as I say, it's because the person is vulnerable and the cult promises to give them this thing that they want. So there's a hook and there's the bait. Okay, here's what you're going to get out of this. And then there's the switch. And you find out that it doesn't give you that at all. So it's just a complicated scam. And when you get excited enough about it, you become victimized. When you become committed enough, you become their victim. Any scam depends on the person not being informed. And they don't give you the whole story.
Dennis, are you willing to talk about your own experiences?
In a general sense, sure. In a general sense, I am.
Does that mean I can't use names?
Oh, you can use whatever you want.
Do you think that what is happening to Tom and Katie, if they're, I know that's been in the newspapers just recently. Is that a huge problem?
Well, it's pretty obvious that they're both pretty whacked out. I mean, they're zoned out pretty badly, and as far as they're living in a bubble of some sort, and that's what a cult is.
Right.
A cult is a little bubble.
Who's that you're talking about?
Who was
sorry?
Tom and Katie?
Oh, she's talking about Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, and they're I know it's celebrity stuff.
According to the National Enquirer, yesterday they broke up.
We don't know. Well, I don't really care. But the point is, it's a bubble. A cult is a bubble. And within that bubble, people have their own little reality. They have their own little world they live in. And certainly those two do. They're escorted everywhere. They've got an entourage. Everything is fed to them. Everything is given to them. Well, in a cult, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You're spoon-fed information. Your circle of friends does not really include anybody outside the cult. Because someone outside the cult can say, huh? what are you saying? What are you doing? What do you mean? And then you have to disconnect from them. You have to either convert them, you have to convert them, or you have to get rid of them as friends. And usually the cult will tell you, you don't want to participate in the outside world because the outside world is polluted. It's sinful. It's they go down the list of all the things.
But Dennis, is there a part of you that's kind of afraid of the power that the people that I am thinking of have? I mean, they hurt people.
Well, cults do that. They don't like dissent. They don't like people to speak out about them. Just like any criminal enterprise, they
Right.
don't want. They can't stand the light of day, so they're going to do everything they can without getting caught to make the person who is speaking out
Right.
their life miserable.
Well, if you do this and you turn it over to somebody as a tape to run, or are you concerned about that?
I've already had my life turned over and over and over and over again by the cult that I was in, so I don't have anything to worry about at this point.
Oh,
They are constrained. They are restrained. They're, if I get a flat tire, they're going to be in trouble. If my dog gets sick, there'll be an investigation.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What made you come out?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question. Well, it was partly because I could no longer connect the dots in my mind between the dogma of the cult and what I was seeing with my own eyes was going on. And so that's called cognitive dissonance. You look at something and you believe one thing, but you're seeing something completely opposite. And that creates a sort of a learning experience in a person's mind. That is sort of the beginning of learning, is where you go, that doesn't match up. So you can now try and connect those dots. Now, why does it say here, why did the guru say this, and yet here it's doing this? So that was part of it. The other part of it was my family. I had dragged my family into this cult, and after a while, I felt like, I might want to submit myself to these kind of tortures. But I can't really ask my children to go through these kinds of things. So it was sort of like, I came to my senses as to what the consequences were of what I was doing. So there was that, it was maturity, it was a lot of bad experiences, it was a lot of things. But eventually a person can't ignore it. If they stay in a cult long enough, they're going to notice that love thy neighbor may be what they have on the sign, but love thy neighbor isn't what's going on in the cult itself. They don't practice what they preach. So that's always the case in these groups. More questions?
Are there any cults in Palm Springs?
Sure.
Can you tell us who to avoid?
Well, cults recruit in a very, very simple and interesting way. They take one of their converts and they say, like I said at the beginning, okay, all of you go out and you bring in 2 more people to this lecture that I'm going to give later tonight. I want you all to go home and bring in 2 more people and tell them what a wonderful speaker I am and how you got everything out of what I spoke about. So they recruit in this way usually by personal referral. And one person sells another, and then having brought in a new person, he sort of raises himself up in rank in the cult. See? And sometimes these cults even give for example, with Tom and Katie, they actually give commissions on everything the person buys from that point on in the cult to the person who brought them in.
Right.
So they all have recruitment techniques. One cult, the Children of God, you've heard of those people? Probably, maybe a little bit you've heard of them. They use their little girls to go out and do what they call flirty fishing with people.
What's
And
flirty fishing?
flirty fishing is the way that these little children, were used to go out and get adults. They'd flirt with them and bring them to the cult that way. So they all have these different recruitment techniques. Most of them involve lying, and using vulnerabilities. So, questions? Okay, well,
May I just add something as your mother?
as my mother, well, how about just as a normal?
As a normal person? When you first joined the cult, you were hypnotized. Definitely hypnotized. You, from the talkative person you were, all of a sudden you were very quiet. Very quiet. And if we didn't speak about the cult, you
I
shut
wasn't
up.
interested in talking at all,
No.
unless it was about the cult.
Right.
Yeah, well, let me just hit this point. Hypnotized. Cults often use mind-stopping, thought-stopping techniques, whether it's mantras that they repeat endlessly, or different drills that they do to shut your mind down. So there's the sense that when you see a cult member, sometimes they have this kind of gaze, right? The stare, the thousand-yard stare of a cult member. Well, it's because they've done some sort of meditation prayer, to make their mind shut down. So that's the hypnotized part. And certainly the cult I was in had a lot of that. And another mechanism that a cult uses to control its members is redefining all the words so that they have a special language that only they understand. And their thoughts now are programmed in this new special language that only other cult members can really understand what they're talking about. You've heard it probably on some of these televangelists have special language that they use over and over again while they preach. Well, it becomes a repetitive chant, and the person it can only communicate that way. So if he prays, he can only pray the way his minister taught him.
Is that speaking in tongues?
Whatever it might be, that would certainly be a good example of what can become a group nuttiness, a group that goes too far with something, and it becomes a little bubble of reality. That church becomes its own little bubble of reality, and they end up thinking that there's spirits in the cupboards. When they end up thinking strange things. So. So cults use redefinition of words and language to, one, change your mind, redefine. Well, the classic communist brainwashing did the same thing. It redefined all these words for you. So there's a lot of that in cults.
What about the word disconnect?
Yeah, well, that's
You had a disconnect from different people because they didn't go along with the cult.
Yeah, disconnect is a word.
They use that often.
And shunning, group shunning is another cult phenomenon. So, more questions? I'll just got a lot of stuff here to cover. Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm asking all the
No,
questions,
no.
but I'm on the fringe of knowing some people, but
that may be involved in something.
And yeah, and I'm very curious about it myself. What happened? You don't have to answer these, of course. What happened to Nicole Kidman? She left that relationship and didn't speak about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that that the cult was a factor in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when you all have people, we all have people that we go to do what is called reality checking, and you say, well, do you like this politician? Do you like what he said here? People you confide in, right? And in a cult, you're in a bubble, so your reality checking is only among other people who think exactly the same as you do, or who think along the lines of the dogma. There's no outside opinions. You don't get outside opinions. North Korea is a good example. They don't ever see anything of the outside world. Well, to that extent, North Korea is a cult. Did I answer your question about what factors helped me get out of the cult that I was in?
No.
Just seeing a lot of abuses of other people and not being able to do anything about it, or eventually to justify it in my own mind, being part of a group that did these kinds of things. Yeah.
Did you ever get status in the cult that you were in?
Oh yeah, I was way up there. I was way up there. I had sort of life and death. Well, let me put it this way: control over the immortal souls of maybe 100 very high-ranking members of the cult. So yeah, I was.
Their soul?
Well, basically, if you're dealing in somebody's spiritual fulfillment, and you stand in their path, they think that.
Oh, I see.
You're above them spiritually, right?
Yeah.
Then you can say, you did a bad thing. You can stop a person's spiritual progress. Basically, they set themselves up between the individual and God or whatever. Yeah.
What was the important thing that made you decide to quit?
Well, it was a series of things, like I say, but one of the things was that my infant daughter nearly died maybe less than a couple of weeks after she was born, because there was no medical treatment in the cult. And that didn't even get it. I mean, that broke my heart. That opened up my heart. But later on, this young child was in the nursery of the cult, and the conditions were so poor that one time when I was changing her diaper, I saw little white worms crawling out of her anus. So that sort of woke me up, if you understand what I mean. That woke me up, that, that closed the distance between the 2 points, how things were supposed to be and how things actually were. I couldn't ignore, it's hard to ignore something like that. So yeah, that sort of snapped me out of my trance.
You were lucky.
Sure. I'm very lucky to have walked away the way I did.
Well, if it's hard to get out, how did you get out?
I got out in a sort of an unusual way. Most people have to escape, and they come and they grab you back, they find you at home and all this stuff. I got out by just being a dissident. Internally, I was a dissident. I started complaining about a lot of things, and I didn't stop complaining. And I used their own policies to protect myself so that they couldn't really come at me, and I had a position in the cult that was very powerful. So it was sort of like they eased me out. They said, if you don't leave, we're going to kick the crap out of you.
So what you did actually is you used the same thing to get out as they used to get you in.
Yeah.
You just reversed the game on them.
Exactly, exactly. So most people can't do it. Most people couldn't do it because they stood right up to me and they said, okay, your immortal soul is in my pocket and I'm not going to give it back if you don't behave, basically. And I said, hey, you got to do what you got to do and I got to do what I got to do. And that was the exact words, and that was the end of my relationship with the
But how, there are people that know about this organization, and Nicole Kidman is a very smart person, unless she got so fried that she couldn't think anymore, and I don't think that's true. How did she?
No. Speaking out against a cult is something that you don't want to recommend anybody do it because their life is going to be turned completely around and over if it happens. You can't blame anybody for not speaking out about it, just like you can't blame anybody for not speaking out to the police when they get scammed buying drugs, right? If somebody is buying drugs and they get scammed, they don't go to the police and say, well, that guy ripped me off for...
But people know about it.
People know about it, but they're afraid. They don't want to...
What about the United States of America? What about the bosses? I mean, they have kings and queens and bosses and all that. What about the bosses in the country?
It is not a crime to organize
Yeah, it's not.
anything, churches or all kinds of things. It's within the
It's
law.
bad.
They are not,
It's
what do you mean?
bad.
Who tells you it's bad?
But
Some
he
people
went
think
into it
it's not
willingly.
crime.
He wasn't. They didn't go out in the back and punch him out.
Yeah, exactly. I was the guy who was, I was the quick, get-rich-quick guy. Okay, you're going to make me rich quick? Only you're going to make me powerful, you're going to make me healthy, you're going to make me happy. I'll go along with you. You're right. I went in with my eyes open, but I was very naive. And they were lying. So I did get scammed. It was on my own volition that I walked in. So you're right. I was the stupid one.
I remember at a family dinner that several of our friends asked you, why did you join the cult? And I remember your answer was, I was hoping to become a better person so that I could make a better world of this. That was your answer.
Most people who join cults join for those good reasons. Yeah, those are the reasons people join cults. Okay, I'm going to read down a list quickly.
Let me ask you
Yes,
one other
go ahead.
question. When you were in the cult,
Yes.
were you making a living?
No.
All your money went back into the cult?
Well, when I was in the cult, I was full-time. I eventually ended up living in the cult compound. They fed me. They paid me $17.50 a week so I could buy cigarettes. And I worked from 8:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night with a half an hour break for dinner, 7 days a week. And when we ran out of money, they just fed us rice and beans until...
Did they allow you to smoke? Because some places don't allow you to smoke. They don't allow you to dance.
Yeah, that's right. Well, in this particular cult, smoking was almost a sacrament.
Oh.
Okay, I want to quickly go down a list of ways you can recognize a cult. Okay? A cult has a leader who gets the members' unquestioning commitment. And recruiting is very important to a cult. Recruiting new members. And they use mind-numbing techniques like meditation and chanting and all these things that shut your brain down. Questioning and having doubts, and they don't let you leave when you're ready to leave. Questioning and having doubt and dissent are discouraged or punished. Members are controlled using guilt, their own guilt, right? Members are told how to think, how to feel, how to act. Members cut ties with their families and friends. They give up personal goals and activities they once cared about. When I was in the cult, I sold my drums, I sold my guitar, practically gave them away. Breaks my heart now to think of those instruments. The group thinks it's on a special mission that only they can do. They have a us versus them mentality. Inside people, outside people. The outside people are bad, we're good, we're going to take over and run things the right way. The group's leader is not accountable to any authorities. Religious leaders and military leaders, of course, are accountable. But these people think they're not accountable to anybody. Members are encouraged to or required to socialize only with other members. And they're expected to devote a lot of time to the group. A lot of time. And if they don't, they're guilty. They're told you're guilty. So those are the basic things I sort of wanted to cover. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them now. Yes?
Do you think that people that are in the cult are happy? Some of them are, probably.
Well, yes. I think that some of them feel they are happy, but that goes back to something that I have learned over my many years watching people delude themselves, and that is that the human mind is capable of infinite delusion.
It's like Tom Cruise went on TV and talked to this man that interviewed him.
Yeah, Matt Lauer.
Matt Lauer. And he made a fool of himself.
Yeah, well, that's
he just out and out. There isn't a person that saw that on the planet that doesn't know. He made a fool of himself, and he didn't.
He didn't realize it.
I know.
Yeah, he doesn't realize it. No, sir.
A cult leader is not just someone who falls off of a wag of turnips. The people think about this and they plan this and they have experienced this, and all the questions that you've asked, they've had these challenges before. They're not just the first time out there. You're not confronting them with anything new. Yeah. And they know the ways to get your mind, and they know that if they give you what you want or make you think you're getting what you want, and they'll say, well, you want this, and you really don't want this, but they'll make you think that you want this. Right. They can really twist your mind up. They can twist up any mind in here if you give them that opportunity.
You turn yourself over to them. That was a point that I want to make before I go. And that is, who is controlling you at any given moment? You're controlling yourself, or you're turning over control to somebody else. Okay? In a cult, you give over control to the cult, and you willingly give it to them. You say, okay, you control me. You tell me what to think. You tell me what to believe. And you're sort of willingly going along with their program until you decide, whoa, wait a minute, where am I? Where am I? Right? You followed their directions and you end up someplace you didn't want to go. And that's what you were saying.
How long were you involved with them?
15, 16 years, and then another 15 or 16 fighting them.
When you got out, did you help anyone else to
That's
get
what
out?
I've done. Yeah, that's what I've done.
That's what he's doing now.
That's what he's doing now. Right?
He's very good.
Thank you. If you guys probably are hungry, lunch.
Yeah.
Thank you
Where's the
very much.
movie? I thought you have a video.
Oh, I'm videoing this.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for taking your time out to come and enlighten us.
You're not gonna go out.
Dennis, I think that you are very brave.
Or very stupid, yes.
Well,